BTS Report. This is Josh White, and today is Tuesday, September 10th. Sorry for not looking at the camera today, but my front cam isn't working on my phone, and I don't feel like holding the phone the other way. It's shaky. I do have some news today. Give me 1 second. So, some news as far as Syria goes. I know I said I didn't want to talk about that stuff, but some hopeful news recently. Syria has agreed to a Russian proposal to turn over its chemical weapons to international control to avoid a possible U.S. military strike. The Reuters quoted Walid al-Muallim as saying, "We had very fruitful round of talks with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov yesterday, and he proposed an initiative relating to chemical weapons. And in the evening, we agreed to the Russian initiative." This ties into another story over at ABC where Obama told them that, quote, "I want to make sure the norm against use of chemical weapons is maintained, even though we gave chemical weapons to Iraq to use against Iran. That's our national and security interest. If we do that without a military strike, that is overwhelmingly my preference." Asked by David Sawyer if he would put plans for an attack on pause should Mr. Assad yield control of his chemical weapons, Obama answered, "Absolutely, if in fact that happened." He said, "The stakes are high, but they are long-term," adding that he does not foresee a succession of votes this week or any time in the immediate future. This is good news with a little bit of bad news. The good news is we may not attack Syria. Yay! The bad news is we reserve the right to do so in the future. This really kind of highlights the comedy that has been the United States government recently, and that the ones coming to the table with diplomatic solutions are the Russians. Really? And it gives hope that maybe all of our calls, all of our letters, the 500-to-1 calls that some senators have been getting in opposition to Syria have been heeded. Doesn't mean we won't attack, just means that there's a strong possibility that they're beginning to realize attacking would be bad for them. And good news, the Netherlands have recently closed 8 prisons because they just don't have criminals to fill them. Obviously, it sucks that the United States isn't doing that, but the fact that somewhere in the world is closing down their prison industrial complex is good news for everyone. Moving right along, I wanted to get into the discussion I promised yesterday about public and private police forces and why they shouldn't exist. We've all seen the news about the no-knock raids done recently, well, done all the time, where SWAT teams are serving warrants now, and they're kicking in doors and shooting innocent people and dogs, which, I mean, I think most of us get a little more pissed off about the dogs than we do about the people, which is kind of sick, but such is life. And this is what happens when you put a monopoly of force in the hands of someone who gets their paycheck from stealing from the average person. And in the anarcho-capitalist circles, they advocate for privatizing police forces and going with private security firms. And while, yes, this would be preferable to a publicly funded violence force, it still leaves the door too wide open for corruption and for the emergence of what anarcho-syndicalists call neo-feudalism. And while I think you should be able to hire whoever you want to bodyguard for you, if someone, say a less than scrupulous entrepreneur, were to amass a fortune and was able to pay a less than scrupulous security firm to enforce, quote, their property rights on a piece of land that they weren't using, had no intention of using, and therefore removed the people who were using that land in a productive way. That's the system that gets set up by private police forces. What I would say would be a better alternative would be private investigation firms. These firms could be contracted by a group of individuals to investigate murders, frauds, things like that, and turn those findings over to a private arbitration firm who could then take the evidence, bring the case before all parties involved, whether it's a community or two individuals, what have you, and present them and give a finding on whether or not the evidence supports the plaintiff or the defendant, and rule on whether there's compensation needed. Obviously, this system also has flaws, and if you want, you can always leave me a comment saying, hey, I see this flaw, this is, maybe this should be addressed, or this is how I think it should be done. I'm always willing to read those. Haven't had any comments on my videos yet, but I'm still new at this. Again, police forces are violence. They enforce silly laws about how fast you can drive, whether you can drive or not, whether you have to have insurance or not, who you registered your car with or not, what you're putting in your body or not. And so I think in order for us to be truly free, we have to move from this paradigm of hiring people to protect us and move into a paradigm of I protect myself, I determine what I do with myself, and therefore no one else has any right to tell me what I can or cannot do to my own body or do to my own property. Whether or not you believe in property is irrelevant. If you have a car that you're using, for all intents and purposes, that car is your property for the moment. But shifting from that paradigm to self-protection and self-governance is vital to maintaining freedom for everybody. Whether you're a collectivist, an individualist, an egoist, or even a Randian objectivist, you have to remove monopoly wherever possible. You have to set up markets for freedom. You have to set up individuals as the biggest corporate entity. This video isn't as well thought out as I would have hoped, but my lunch is over. I may elaborate on this later today, like on my ride home or something. But I'm always trying to improve on the quality of what I present. And so if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. If you have anything you want me to talk about, please leave it in the comments. If you want me to stop talking, please leave it in the comments. Those are my opinions. Take them or leave them. Have a good one.